Hey guys, welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we've got another update for Tricky Trials Plus. This is update 3, and it brings quite a lot of changes and also new additions. Now once again, I want to say huge thanks to Centauri and TheBlockyGoat for helping with the update. I will have their channels linked in the description. But before we jump to the new features, I want to jump to the changes, as there are quite a lot of them. So the first change comes with the Ominous Cage and Soul Essence. The Soul Essence have had an updated texture, and this is just to put the flame in a jar. Now the block itself has had quite a few updates. First of all, the heavy core in the center will no longer spin when it's not powered. It will just stay there static. The next thing is you will not be able to change the entity that is being spawned while the block is powered. So it spawned a pillager because I clicked the pillager on it. I have now clicked the breeze on it, and you'll see the next mob that is spawned is still a pillager. This also won't consume the bottle, as you can see. And we made this change purely because you could click on a powered block and it would just then cause some confusion. The next thing that is also changed is mobs now have their spawns finalized. Meaning that if they spawn with equipment, they can now spawn with that equipment. For example, the pillagers now spawn with crossbows. Skeletons, strays, and bogged now spawn with bows. The next change is if you have the difficulty set to peaceful, the block will now no longer spawn anything, it will just sit idle. And the final change, Soul Essence now only stack to 1. Now another 2 changes I want to mention, we have updated the name of the Bubsy. It is now called the Bubbles. And the reason for this, a lot of people suggested the name the Brine. But we want all of the mobs to be, or all the elemental mobs to be basically matching in names. And currently they all end in ZE and start with a B. So calling it the Brine doesn't really work. And that does also mean the Bubsy Rod has been updated as well. And then the Infested Skeleton has been updated to be called the Bristle. Now they work exactly the same, it is purely just a name change. Now let's jump to some of the new items before we jump to the big massive features in this update. So we have made quite a lot of changes to the Tricky Chamber, which I'll jump to later on. I quickly just want to cover something that spawns both in the Trial Chamber and the Tricky Chamber. So first we need to find ourselves a spawner, which I have got one right here. So if I go in survival mode and activate it, let's quickly just grab some torches. So now when you kill a mob that has been spawned by a trial spawner, there is a chance they'll drop a new item. Now it's about a 10% chance, and that new item is a trial shard. Now trial shards have 2 uses. The first use is they are now used in the Ominous Cage recipe. So we have removed iron bars from these slots and it's replaced with trial shards. And the second use is combining it with some copper will get you a new item. So if you do something like so, I think it's then also like that. So this recipe right here will give you a lockpick. And this lockpick can be used on vaults and trial spawners. So if I was to open this vault, I will get some loot. You can see that I'm getting the loot right there. And once it's finished ejecting, I cannot open this vault anymore, at least inside of vanilla. Now, if I click a lockpick on it, the lockpick will be consumed, and it will make it so I can open this vault again. Now, the lockpick wasn't consumed because I'm in creative mode, and as you can see, I can now open the vault, and it will once again give me another roll of loot. Now, they can also be used on trial spawners, the lockpicks. So if I quickly just defeat this mob, so this spawner activates, there we go. You can see the spawner goes into cooldown, and if I click a lockpick on it, it will basically unactivate the spawner, meaning that we can trigger it again, getting the mobs to spawn again. So the lockpick can be used on the trial spawner, as well as any vault, that is normal vaults, ominous vaults, or any vault that is added by this mod. Now before we jump to the Tricky Chamber, I want to cover a new item that has been added, or new blocks, and that is you can now use 2 rods, and this works for the breeze, the blaze, or the bubbles. And you can now get a shaft of that element. So if I quickly just show you, there we go. And finally the bubbles one. And these basically work like end rods. You can place them down to give off light, and you can basically use them to decorate. They can also be placed at a diagonal like so. And these are just a random block we thought would be cool to see, as then you can use them in builds. And people have been asking for placeable blaze rods for quite some time. So we are now at the Tricky Chamber. And a lot of you guys did give feedback on this, and this is still something we are trying to work on. But we have now added a new block, and also updated the texture of titanium. You can see titanium is right here. It's been updated to make it more unique, but all of titanium has had a texture update, from the normal blocks to the grates to the door to the trapdoor and even the bulb. But this brings a new set called the heated titanium. Now we'll cover a little bit more about how you can get this block later on, but with these new blocks, the look of the chamber has also changed. Now, ominous blocks have also had a texture update, so ominous slate. And if I quickly just show you what that looks like, this is what a new texture looks like, which I think it's a lot better. It isn't so dark, and it blends in with the structure a lot more nicely. So this is just what a new structure looks like. Now, there are still some changes that I think we need to make, but we want to hear your guys' feedback before we make them changes. Now, the mobs and that spawn in the structure haven't changed. They are still exactly the same. Pottery shards that spawn here have been changed as well. They will now spawn 2 new shards. You've got the infested shard, which is a silverfish, and then you've got the Viola shard, which is the Viola witch. We've also updated the Tricky Vault loot tables for both versions. These will now give rarer items. You can now also get a smithing template. You get the Omen version from Ominous Vaults, and you get the Heavy version from Normal Vaults. A few changes that we have made: the items you get are not 100% guaranteed anymore. So for example, the OP armor that you could get with like Sharpness 6, Fortune 4, they now still drop, but they are a lot rarer. Same with the Soul Essence. They do still drop, but they are a little bit more rarer. So I've come to the surface so I can show you a better look at the updated titanium textures. So here is normal titanium. Once again, the blocks haven't changed in function. They still work exactly the same. It is purely just the textures that have been updated. Now, one thing I do want to ask you guys, do you know what that says? If you do, let me know in the comments, but that writing at the bottom there does say something. Now, heated titanium, once again, it has the same functions as normal titanium. It is purely just a texture change, and if I show you all of them blocks like so, you can see what they look like. Now, how do you get these blocks? Well, you can get them from the tricky chamber, but that isn't the only way. And because they are heated, all you need to do is grab the blocks you want. So let's say we want these ones to be turned to heated, and you need to head into the nether. You basically just need to place these blocks down, and over time, they will basically tick and turn into the heated versions. Now, if I turn the random tick speed up, you will see that they change very quickly. Now, it doesn't take as long as copper to oxidize, but it does take a while still. And here is the new textures for Ominous Slate. They have just been made a lot lighter with more of a bluey purple tint to them to make them fit better within the structure, and also to make it so it's not as dark on the eyes. Now, before we jump to the new structure, I want to cover an update to an older structure, and that is the Prismarine Fortress. This structure has been updated a lot. You can now see what it looks like. It isn't just a plain empty structure anymore. It spawns in oceans with some of the top peeking through, and it just looks like this. It looks like a fortress made of prismarine. Now, if you head on inside, you will find some random rooms. Drowns that can spawn throughout this structure, and the rooms are purely just for loot, so you can break them for prismarine, or some of them have loot in them like suspicious blocks and things like that. But it's also kind of a maze, because if you find your way to the center room, there are some squids. Let's quickly just try and do so. The center room is right here. This center room has 2 spawners inside of it, and these spawners are for the bubbles. Now, the mob hasn't changed in function. It still shoots projectiles at you that propel you in the direction you are facing, but they have been given a new drop. Now, the drop is quite rare. It's about a 10% chance. And there we go, we got it. This is the Elder Key. Now, the Elder Key is dropped only from these mob, so you have to come here and kill them. Now, these outside rooms are random. They'll be randomly picked from a set list of rooms. The corner rooms are always the same, and you can now open a new vault in here, which is themed around ocean monuments. Now, if you click the key on, you can get some random items related to oceans, with a 100% chance to get some sponge, just to make sponge a little bit easier. And also, from these vault blocks, there is a new item that you can get, which is another smithing template, which if I quickly just try and get it, it's not that common. And that new smithing template is right there. This is called the Elder Trim. But before we do, that is the Prismarine Fortress. It's a lot more rewarding to come here now. There is definitely way more loot here than before, and there's way more to do rather than just going going into an empty structure. So they are in the same order they are in my inventory. So this one is the Omen, which is found from tricky, ominous vaults. This one is Elder, which is found from the Prismarine Fortress. And this one is Heavy, which is found from tricky vaults. And once again, they just are purely for decoration. They have no other function. But if I quickly just show you around them, this is what they look like. And for anyone wondering, this is what the Ocean Vault looks like. It is themed off of Guardians, while also having the Prismarine Fortress feel to it. Now let's cover the first new structure. And this is the Labyrinth. Now some of you may recognize this structure because it's themed off of the Minecraft 1.21 concept art, while adding our own twist to it. Now there is a way to find this structure as well as the tricky chamber, which I'll cover later because it's once again a new feature. But this structure is a maze. Now this is the starting room, and you can see I do have something called the Labyrinth's Curse. So this is the Labyrinth. Now when you get into the structure, you're going to have to dig in from this front part, which I'll show you how you can find the structure a lot easier in a second. And the reason you're going to have to dig in from this front part is because you get an effect called Labyrinth Curse. And that makes it so you cannot break any block the structure is built out of. You can break decorations, but you cannot break this new block, which I'll cover in a second, or you cannot break copper. Now once you head through this corridor, there is a corridor that leads to a maze. Now once you've found your way through this maze, there are some traps and things like that to lead you across the way. So we are now at the end of the maze, and throughout the maze the traps will be random every time. They won't always be the same. So at the end of the maze, there is some new blocks. First of all, this block, which is a copper eye with the pupil looking at you. If you break this, then the effect of the Labyrinth's Curse will be removed, meaning that you can now break the structure and use the blocks as decoration. And you'd also get a redstone core, which this block currently has no function. The function will be coming in a future update. And then when you make it to the end, there is a lot of loot. Inside of this chest is some blocks the structure is built out of. So you have some cert bricks, also cert and polished cert, as well as just some other blocks. This block is called a safe, and it has a special function. These blocks can also be crafted, which I'll cover the crafting recipe in a second. But these blocks cannot be opened by anyone when they are powered by redstone. So you can see this one is currently powered. If I flick this lever off, I can then open the block. So basically the block can only be opened if it's not powered, and this creates for some cool redstone. Now this one is mainly themed around redstone resources, so you'll find a lot of redstone items. These two are themed around valuable resources. And this one also has a lot of loot in it as well. So this is what this shirt block set looks like. This can be found in the Labyrinth and also in stone layers in jungle biomes. There is also a new item that you can only find here, and this is the wrench. The wrench has durability, it has 64. This can only be found within the loot of the structure. And basically what the wrench does, it does it so any block that has direction can be adjusted. If you crouch and then click, you can now see that I am rotating this block. So if you look here, facing north, you can see I'm changing the direction it is facing. So if I quickly just grab a few redstone related blocks, so I have furnaces, let's grab the dropper, the observer, let's maybe grab the chiseled bookshelf, and then let's grab a chest. So if I place these down, and you can then see if I was to crouch and click the wrench, I am changing the way they are facing just with the wrench. I then don't have to break them and place them. Does also work with things like pistons, so it's good if you misplace a piston, then you can just rotate it without having the need to break it and replace it. Now they have 64 durability, and it uses 1 durability every time you click a block, but once again it can be repaired with iron ingots. So when you're exploring in deep state layers, you'll now find this new item, which if you break it, it's the ancient roots. Now these ancient roots have one function. They are quite rare and are not that common. But if you find yourself a new mob, which can spawn anywhere in deep state layers in the overworld, this new mob is the Mooling. Now it spawns with a diamond axe, and if you feed it the ancient roots, it will give you a map. And this Mooling Explorer map can lead to one of 4 structures: the Tricky Chamber, the Labyrinth, the Blitz Dungeon, or a new structure which we haven't quite covered yet. And you can feed the ancient roots to them as many times as you want to get different maps, Although if you feed too many, after a while they will run out of maps to give, and the maps they give will be blank. And that is purely because they can only search a certain radius to give you a map. So if you move them into another part of the world, thousands of blocks away, then they'll probably give you some more maps. Now upon killing these, they don't give you anything, but they only like ancient roots. So if you was to click them with something else, it will make them angry. So I've come to the surface because it's easier to show. Now if I go in survival mode, you can see the Mooling is passive towards me. If I give him some ancient roots, he won't affect me and he'll give me a map. But if I click anything else on him apart from ancient roots, he'll turn aggro and he will kill me. They will also kill you if you provoke them, so if you attack them. So let's quickly just show you that. If I punch him, then he'll punch me back. They don't like you bothering them unless you're going to bother them with ancient roots. So this new structure which spawns in deep state layers is the redstone mine. Now it's a mine that has been dug out with a load of redstone. The structure spawns the main corridors, then these center parts down here are random, as well as these, and this bridge in the center is also random, with some different variations that can spawn. Now there's a lot of hidden things within this, but this structure is mainly meant for redstone resources. As you can come here, and there are barrels hidden underneath the lamps with mainly redstone, but there is also a chance this can be filled with diamonds, gold, iron, and also valuable resources for people who don't really care about redstone. But there is also a new mob that spawns here, and this is the Redstone Beast. The Redstone Beast is a new golem-like mob, which it's hostile towards the player. As soon as you go in survival mode, the beast will chase you, and its arms will glow when it is chasing you. There's another one behind me as well, and this mob is basically here just to protect the mine. Now to cover the final feature, we have to take one of these out, because when you kill them, there is a chance that they will drop a new item, and that item is the Heart of the Beast. Now, this isn't 100% chance. It's about a 20% chance or something around that. Now, this Heart of the Beast can be used to make two things. First of all, the safe, which we covered earlier. It's crafted with 2 cobblestone, 2 redstone, Heart of the Beast, some iron, and also a chest, and that gets you 1 safe. Or it can also be used to make the player detector, which is 6 copper blocks, 2 diamonds, and a Heart of the Beast. And this is the only way to obtain the player detector. Now, the player detector, when placed down, will detect a player within 8 blocks. If a player is within 8 blocks, it will power with a blue light, let off now and again some particles as well as a sound effect. And when a player is within range, it will also give a redstone output. But the thing to note about this is it will also detect players through walls, so they do not need to be in line of sight of the block. And the final thing before we end this video, there are some new advancements. First of all, food exchange is for giving a Mooling ancient roots. We then also have lost to time, which is step foot in a labyrinth. We also have this is an Atlantis for stepping foot in a Prismarine Fortress, and then we also have Guardian's Gift for unlocking a Elder Vault with a Elder Key. And that is everything for Update 3. Now there will be an Update 4. Update 4 is something that we'll currently work on, and that will release sometime in the future. But make sure to leave your feedback and suggestions for Update 3 in the comments or within Discord. My Discord is linked in the description. And if you did enjoy this video, do leave a like and subscribe, as it does really help out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!